what's going on? I just want to do a little quick video here on locking systems for folding knives. I've got two different knives here, two different brands, two different locking systems. On the left, you see we have a cold steel. Cold steel is known for their triad lock, and their triad lock is known to be very strong, and it's kind of like a lock back system with an added modification of like a stop pin up here, which the tang of the blade rests on, and that little stop pin, you can see it there, it basically acts as a wedge between the lockback system and the tang of the blade up there. So when you lock it in, you can kind of see right there, the stop pin is in between that lockback and the blade, the end, or the tang of the blade, I guess is what you'd call it. I'm not sure if that's the tang or if the tang is just the very far back, but yeah, you can see the cutout there. The cutout there is angled pretty upwards because that lockback basically has like a tooth in there, and that tooth kind of locks inside of that you know, that opening, that cutout right there. And then the top part right here, sorry, is what's going to rest against the stop pin. So you can see apparently this system is much stronger than a traditional lockback. You know, it prevents the strongness, the strength is what's going to prevent it from unlocking under heavy use. So it's going to stay locked in. And cold steel is known for this triad lock. It's known to be one, actually, I think they claim that it is the strongest folding knife locking system you can buy. You know, there's been tests done, and it is apparently very strong. And I think it pretty much is going to vary depending on the knife you get, because you know, the thickness of the blade is going to change how strong this locking system is, because that's going to be the thickness of the lockback and the stop pin, everything in there is going to be much different. You know, if you have a much thicker knife like a SR1, or you know, it has a thicker blade stock, so everything's going to be thicker in there, might be a little stronger than this. This is the American Lawman, cold steel American Lawman. And over here I have a Spyderco. So Spyderco is a very good company. I'm going to put this flashlight over here. Spyderco is a great company, very high quality products, and very good, you know, for what you pay for, you get very good quality, in my opinion. They are known also for, they use a couple different locking systems, but they are known for their compression lock system, which is unique to them. I'm not sure if well, there should be a patent on them because I don't see them anywhere else. But the compression lock is this right here. So this, at first glance, and what many people say, is that it's like a reverse liner lock. And when I first got into knives quite a few years ago, I kind of, that's what I thought at first. But the more you look at it, it's actually, I mean, it is a reverse liner lock, or not necessarily reverse, but instead of being down here on that side, the front side, well, let's see. Actually, if it was a liner lock, a right-handed liner lock, it'd be on this side. So it's on the opposite scale and up. And it is similar to a liner lock where you have these outer handles, and then there's like, it is a liner, I guess. You know, they use liners, and this is a paramilitary to Tanto. Yeah, Spyderco paramilitary to Tanto. It uses a compression lock, but basically, yeah, it is G10 scales with a liner inside, and this compression lock is kind of built like, it's designed like a liner lock, like a reverse liner lock, where a normal liner would be on the outer side, but it's on the opposite scale and at the top. Now, the reason why I have both these knives out is because they're actually very similar. So what I wanted to show you, and what I've been thinking about, is these are actually very similar locking systems. So even though this looks like a reverse liner lock where it's on the opposite scale, opposite side of the knife, it's not just a reverse liner lock, because what happens is if you had just the liner down here like a regular liner lock, it's going to pop in against the tang of the blade and lock the blade in. But up here you have a stop pin, very, very similar to this cold steel right here. And what I want to line these guys up. I want to show you something. So if you look at where the locking mechanisms I'm actually going to line up the stop pins. I'm going to try to line up the stop pins. So what you see here is, you see the top of the blade, it is resting against the stop pins. I'm going to bring this a little bit closer here. So if you look at the back tang of the blade at the top, it's going to be resting against the stop pins. And then you have a locking mechanism. On the left is the cold steel, that's the American Lawman, and it's clicked in, locked against the stop pin, and also locked in the tang of the blade where that cutout is. So that is a very strong locking mechanism. If you look at the Spyderco PM2 on the right, it's a tanto version, not that it makes a difference back here, but it's a PM2, Spyderco PM2. The back tang of the blade in the top section is rested against the stop pin, and that locking mechanism, which most people say it's just a reverse liner lock, it's not, because there's no stop pin at the bottom section of the blade. If this was just a liner lock, there's no stop pins down there. It's going to pop in. It's a completely different system. It's actually very comparable to this cold steel, because what it's doing is it's locking in. It's actually it's similar. It's very, very similar, but it's kind of just located where that locking is located a little bit differently down in there. But it's doing the same thing as the cold steel, where the cold steel is locking, and it's the top of the tang of the blade is resting against the top pin, the stop pin, and then the locking system is resting against the stop pin as well, and also the tooth is in the cutout for the tang of the blade. The compression lock for Spyderco, you got the top of the tang of the blade resting against the stop pin, and you have the locking mechanism, which is coming in from left to right instead of from top to bottom. You know, it's coming in from left to right, and it's also resting against the stop pin, and it's also resting against the cutout in the tang of the blade where that cutout is for the PM2. So they're very similar. The main difference I can see is, well, two main differences are the American Lawman, well, the cold steel triad lock. You know, there's a few differences, but the main differences when it comes to the locking mechanisms is, you know, obviously this is going to be up and down. You know, that lock comes up and locks in, and you know, that's pretty good. It's not as fidgety friendly. It is still smoother, I would say, than most traditional lockbacks, although there might be some like brass bronze washer lockback Spydercos that are maybe smoother than that. But anyways, I think the fidget factor, and there is another difference, but yeah, the compression lock is obviously very fidget friendly, because you got the compression lock coming in from left to right, so you can use your index finger. All your fingers are out of the way of the path of the blade when it's opening, when it's closing and opening. So it's very fidget friendly, very similar, oh, kind of similar to like an axis lock, but in my opinion it is a little bit better. That's just my opinion, but I think one reason why it might be a little bit better is because it is actually more like the triad lock. The main difference is that it's, well, obviously it's thinner. You know, it is like a liner lock, based off the liner part for how thick it is and how it's kind of operated, other than being on the opposite side and opposite scale. But the way it actually locks in, I believe this should be way stronger than a regular liner lock. I mean, most of these compression lock Spydercos are like 50% lockup. This looks like 40% lockup. It is at a pretty steep angle, so if you really look in there at the how deep it goes, it's pretty much 50% lockup at the tip of the liner in there for this liner. But anyway, what I'm trying to get at is the way that this liner locks in is very similar to the way that the cold steel triad lock locks in, except the triad lock is up and down. You know, it's up and down to open, to unlock and lock it. Well, basically to depress the locking system will go up and it will allow the blade to be free and close, or open. You can actually open it that way too. You can press it and open it and close it. But it's not as fidget friendly as a compression lock, you know, very easy to manipulate compression lock. So now I will say, yeah, like I said, the liner in there is not as thick as that cold steel triad lock. So that might be that might prevent it from being as strong as a triad lock. But the point that I'm kind of trying to make here is that these two locking systems are so similar. You know, that it's just basically how the lock is engaged. You know, like I said, with the triad lock, that lock back system is going up and down. And then for the Spyderco compression lock, it's going left to right. So they both use the stop pin, and they both have the locking bar or locking mechanism resting against the stop pin and the cutout in the tang of the blade, and both of the tang of the blades in the top section is resting against the stop pin as well. So the main difference for these two are up and down for the locking, and the thickness, it's thicker on the cold steel, and it's left to right on the Spyderco compression lock, and it's a much thinner bar. But I believe maybe it feels like the material is pretty high quality for that lock, for the that liner in there that pops out when you open the blade. And I'm not sure what they use for cold steel, but it does kind of seem a little lightweight of a metal material. That's just my opinion. These are just my thoughts on these two knives. Not necessarily the knives, but the brand and their locking system they use for these knives. And yeah, let me know what you guys think. Thank you.